Hello and welcome to a special programme, Shaping the Future, where we examine the economic, technological and geopolitical advances envisioned by the CPC Central Committee's third plenary session. More than 300 reform measures were announced, covering everything from education and property to technology and especially finance.
We
need to embrace high-standard international trading rules, expand institutional opening up, and build a high-standard open economic system. We will expand the opening up of the commodity market, service market, capital market and labour markets in an orderly manner, making life more convenient for foreign travellers, so that the large Chinese market will become a significant opportunity for the world.
With me now to examine the economic impact of the Third Plenum are Alfred Schipke, Director of the East Asian Institute and Professor in Practice of International Finance at the Kuan School of Public Policy in Singapore; Michele Geraci, Visiting Professor of Finance and Economics at New York University, Shanghai; and Markus Hermann Chen, Co-founder and Managing Director of China Macro Group. Alfred, so more than 300 reform measures announced, with many focused on financial reform. What's your take on the outcome of the plenum?
I actually was positively surprised about the type of reforms and the comprehensiveness of the reforms that were put forward. When it comes to the economy, there are a couple that maybe one could highlight. One of them is the overall coordination of macroeconomic policy. A second one is related to, as you highlighted, the financial sector itself. A third one, I think very, very important and not easy to do, is the central local government relationship, with what we call in the West fiscal federalism. And maybe a little bit the language as it relates to both SOEs and the governance structure, as well as the private sector as a key driver, especially in the more innovative sectors. On the financial sector side, maybe just a few highlights that I think could make a difference. One is the emphasis on the development of capital markets, that in the future, direct financing, whether it's through equity or bonds, will play a more important role. That is very good because it does two things. It will lead to more competition. As you know, China's financial system remains mostly bank-based, and a little bit of competition there is good. And in order to finance some of the more innovative sectors that China envisaged to do, for that, of course, capital markets are very helpful.
Michele, high standard opening up was one of the key messages, with China saying it will staunchly adhere to international economic and trade rules and develop new institutions for highest standard open economy. What do you understand by that?
I think it's a very smart policy and a very smart announcement. On the trade issue, we of course have memories of when China was a low-cost producer of low value-added goods. They wanted to join the world trade, and there were some anti-dumping issues. China was treated with a cautious eye by the developed world because they were fearing that China would flood their own markets with the Chinese goods. Now China has moved to producing not all, but a lot of high value-added products. And now China wants that the rules of the WTO be respected, because now the situation is that China has an advantage in many sectors vis-a-vis the manufacturing of goods made in Europe and made in USA. I'm thinking of electric vehicles. We do know that BYD and the rest of the Chinese EV producers are much more competitive than European producers. So what does the EU do? They put tariff on goods, on vehicles imported from China into Europe. And China, with this announcement, says, hey guys, we must play by the rules of the WTO, and we do not do dumping. We are just the largest producer of EV. And because we are the largest, we of course have the lowest average cost. It's not about subsidies that maybe, yes, they were so in the past, but now we have reached a certain scale that we are much more competitive than you. So let's stick to the rules. Let's play by the rules. And now, when in the past the rules were favoring the Western world, now playing by the rules would favor the Chinese company. And that's why China is insisting on this point, on the international, let's say, rule order.
Yeah. So business is business. And on that point, Markus, the Plenum also announced those plans to create a first-class and fertile business environment for investors. We've been talking about capital markets and foreign companies being having more easy access to China. So how do you see that playing out?
I think it strategically makes sense. I think it's in the fundamental interest of China. So things like unifying the domestic market, strengthening rule of law, fair and equal treatment, improving governmental services to market participants. These things all make sense. I've specifically spotted also two more market opening basically mentions in the text. One is actually on foreign financial institutions joining financial pilots. And the second one is encouragement of foreign private equity and venture capital to join innovation activities inside China. However, I would say for foreign business, main considerations that they are thinking about is with this plenum resolution is how does the interrelationship between development and security evolve? How is the bigger emphasis on industrial policy, on science, on talent? How is that accessible for foreign business? And fundamentally, I think it's also about psychological factors like predictability, transparency, whether the policy is being implemented, whether that's tangible and can be observed.
Alfred, what do you think needs to be done to turn all of this talk into action, stoking growth at home and abroad and wooing foreign investors?
The critical part is what the reform agenda shows is it gives people kind of an idea of where China wants to go, and that of course is critically important for both domestic investors and foreign investors. But of course, the devil is in the detail. So I think the next step is to hear over the next few months and years, how are these broader ideas and reforms implemented? And as I mentioned before, some of them are truly ambitious. Again, central local government relationships, to change them is not easily done anywhere. So I think, again, the key will be to see what the specific steps are. I think if China continues and does this, that will over time increase confidence and will, of course, then attract foreign investors as well.
So the devil is in the detail, as you say. You need to find out more about that. And we also need to think of the time frame. Because I wonder what you think, Michele, if you agree with that. Because implementation is really, really key here, isn't it? Especially when it comes to developing that fairer, more dynamic market environment.
I agree. This is the challenge to make sure that those theory becomes practice. The good news is that we have been used to seeing China pretty much always being able to implement reforms. We want to always make sure that the Chinese economy moves from investment-driven to more consumption-driven. I think this is, in a way, I'm optimistic, relatively easy. It would be very easy to unlock the potential of consumer by just providing a better welfare network, free healthcare, free education. So we get rid of that 20% of precautionary saving that Chinese individuals do because they don't know what's going to happen in the future, if they get sick, if they need to get married, if they need to study. And that is, in a way, something that I think the Chinese government is keeping for later years, for when it needs to really unlock this potential of consumption. So we need to work on wages, and we need to work on diminishing the ratio of savings to income.
It's interesting what you're saying there about the government keeping some tricks up their sleeve, for the future. But Markus, I want to pick up on something that Michele actually mentioned earlier when he was talking about the electric vehicle market, and that's foreign trade, because the Plenum announced plans to accelerate new dynamics in foreign trade. And I wonder what you read into that and what your clients maybe want to see happen.
I think the plenum resolution is putting emphasis on things that have been already there, like digital trade, cross-border e-commerce, trade of services. But there are specifically 4 things that I found that are new in trade that I find very interesting. The first one is there's a wording in the text that talks about China wanting to proactively reach higher trade standards. It's a new wording. A second one is to unilaterally open up more China's economy to the least developed economies as a second. The third one is to fully implement the cancellation of all foreign direct investment manufacturing into China in terms of market access. And then a fourth, a new concept also to build a global distribution center, which has never been there as a concept.
Michele, you wrote an article during the plenum that said that the West should maybe see China and China's rise as an opportunity. How do you think that might play out now, following the third plenum?
It must be seen like that, because the rise of China is unstoppable. Despite the challenges the Chinese economy has, the economy will continue to grow at whatever rate, whether it's 4, 5, or 6, it just gets bigger and bigger. So this is a reality with which the West needs to be confronted with. You know, certain countries want to contain the growth of China. This is a completely impossible task that will hurt those countries, the US and the European Union, that are afraid of China growth. I think in a way we need to move away from that view that relations between countries are like a profit and losses for a company, and think that the relationship is like a supply chain. If I'm in the middle of a supply chain, I want my supplier to be successful, because I want them to continue to give me goods at a good price. And I want my customer to be successful, because I want them to continue to buy my products. So we need to think as a country being in the middle of this supply chain between suppliers and customers, and hoping that both supplier and customer are healthy, prosperous, and stable. I think, in my view, this is very easy. It's very difficult to convince certain politicians that that indeed is the way to see things.
Well, Markus, I can see you smiling at what Michele has been saying there. I wonder where you see the real opportunities for foreign investors in the wake of this gathering. The communiqué did say, after all, that China will lift restrictions on the market while ensuring effective regulation. Is that music to your ears?
So real opportunities for foreign investors, I think it's very, I think it's not easy to see them through the lens of a plenum resolution, because a plenum resolution is about structural changes. I really think it needs deep analysis and fine reading. So I think ideally the outcome of the third plenum is actually meeting corporate strategy review processes of foreign businesses in the next weeks, months, years, that are looking at China through the lens also of the third plenum. Because then you have long-term looking at long-term. And I think then basically you're doing justice to what Chinese policymakers and leadership are trying to do. On the point of lifting restrictions while ensuring effective regulation, I think this is nothing new. I think this is the operating paradigm of Chinese market regulators. There's no specific excitement around that. The question is just basically what is lifted and what are the regulations that are in place, and are they being communicated early enough and clearly enough?
Markus Hermann Chen, Michele Geraci and Alfred Schipke, thank you all very much. We'll now take a short break, but do stay with us for more on this special programme, Shaping the Future, as we examine why innovation is key to the future of China and the rest of the world. Welcome back to this special programme, Shaping the Future, where we consider the global impact of China's third plenum. The focus on new quality productive forces to promote high quality development is key to China's plan for the future. And to help with that, talent cultivation and technological innovation will be vital, according to Education Minister Huai Jinpeng.
Our focus is on igniting scientific and technological creativity. The resolution emphasises the need to optimise the organisational mechanisms for major scientific and technological innovations, to build our country's strength in strategic science and technology, and to step up coordinated efforts to secure breakthroughs in core technologies in key fields.
With me now to consider how China can drive global innovation are Erik Baark, Professor Emeritus at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Thorsten Jelinek, Senior Fellow and Europe Director at the Taihe Institute, and Vuk Jeremić, former Serbian Foreign Minister and former President of the United Nations General Assembly. Great to have you all on the programme. Thank you very much. Now, Erik, let me start with you. Because at the plenum, the CPT talked about making China a major global centre for innovation. How do you see that happening?
It's supposed to happen in 2035. I think Mr. Xi Jinping is a bit more modest. He always talks about 2050 or 2049 as the key date. Anyway, there is a lot of discussion about the science, technology, innovation system in the plenum document. I think I counted 2,000 words out of the 22,000 words. So it's given a prominent place. But at the same time, much of that discussion is about deep reforms of the science and technology system. And I think that's a very practical and good approach. So yes, if the reforms succeed, I think we will see something in 10 years.
Thorsten, where do you see the opportunities for innovation and growth in that direction in China?
I think for any economy, or any economy must embrace innovation, as this is the only way to overcome the diminishing returns of mere development or the diminishing returns of only focusing on efficiencies or a factor-driven economy. So for China, the real opportunity actually lies in the virtual, right, in this paradox, so in digitalization and how China can actually use digitalization for the benefit of society. So I think that's the real opportunity. And here I saw basically two messages from the Third Plenum. First, technology is not something which is inherently good or bad. I think it's a potential, and it's somehow restless. But it also tends to reinforce certain structures or certain developments. So here China has consistently demonstrated how to balance between, let's say, market and technology forces, and how to control and stabilize and make it useful for society over the past decades. So I think this is a message which is going forward, which we can see and actually read from all the documents of the Third Plenum. And secondly, I also think that what came to me is not just the new, but also the old productive forces. Those were not just simply invented by fiat. So no poor country has ever managed to become rich just by letting market forces operate. So this requires state intervention. And I think China's state intervention has always been one of generating abundance as opposed to a development based on expropriation and scarcity. I think we can here be optimistic for China, but also for the many countries that benefit from China's further development. And of course, which has been critically discussed, China also needs to price the inputs that go to in the industry to keep the innovation going.
So talking then about the other countries that could be affected by China's innovation drive, Vuk, I mean, how do you see those new advances or reinforced commitment to advancing innovation affecting other parts of the world? I just wonder what opportunities do you think that China's drive forward can create for countries like Serbia, for example?
Thank you for this opportunity. Greetings from Serbia to everybody. It's a country that has a very special relationship with China, a comprehensive one. We cooperate very closely in all fields, including in technology. And the experience of Serbia so far has been exceptional. The relationship based on mutual respect and sovereign equality of nations is not something that you get too often in today's turbulent geopolitical world. But touching upon some of the things that you had asked my colleagues here at the panel, whether China can turn into a global hub for innovation, I believe China is already a global hub. As a matter of fact, one of the leading global hubs for innovation. I just spent a week of high-level counseling and brainstorming at Cambridge University, my alma mater, and we were looking at numbers carefully compiled by the statisticians. There are 2,500 top global companies when it comes to research and development, and let's call them G2500. They account for about 91% of annual investment in technology R&D, about $1.5 trillion these companies invest. As a matter of fact, there are 700 Chinese companies amongst the global 2,500 when it comes to R&D investment, and when it comes to innovation. There are only 34 companies that are from the developing countries other than China in those top 2,500. And in the top 500 companies that invest in technology R&D, it's only China and the developing world.
Green, low carbon and circular development were also singled out at the plenum. We all know how important those things are. I mean, where do you think China is going to have to focus to drive that carbon-friendly future?
Well, I would like to say that I think ecology, the ecological civilization is very dear to the heart of Mr. Xi Jinping. And he has, in my view, been a major driver of green development. For instance, he announced the dual carbon goals of peaking carbon emissions by 2030 and to become carbon neutral in 2060. So these goals are, the Chinese are working really hard to identify how they can reach these goals. Personally, I've had a look at the, I think the green industries, the wind turbine and solar panel industries in China are really moving forward very quickly. So that's one very important factor. But sort of decarbonizing the industry is also a major task. And I also think that, the price of carbon in the system is very much too low to be effective. And more industries should be covered by that system. But if that happens, I could easily see China decarbonize much of its economy in the future.
And Thorsten, international cooperation is, of course, vital if we're going to save the planet. What do you see as China's role in that cooperation?
I think here it makes sense to actually contrast China's current approach to collaboration and how collaboration worked in the past century in relation to technology and how technology was used. So basically, in the past century, as we all know, technology remained kind of a prerogative of a few rich countries. So, and only over time, only a few broke through that asymmetry, and only one, probably that's China, that broke through the past technology asymmetry or collaborative asymmetry, and also tries to avoid those old structures, let's say exclusive structures in institutions. So because of that, what I would say failure of the past century, we see now the rise of a multipolar world and widespread demand for technology, digital data sovereignty. So everyone wants actually kind of benefit from that technology. And here I see, I think, two roles, and this was also emphasized, two roles China plays. First, Erik mentioned already that China managed actually also with maybe a lack of sufficient pricing of the industrial inputs, but it has nevertheless managed to create very competitive green technologies. That's number one. And the second one is actually a platform for sharing, internationally sharing this platform as a public good.
We're talking a lot about all these new technologies and digitalization in amongst the focus on that innovation, high quality development, modernization. One of the key messages at the plenum is that China will deepen reform, something that Erik mentioned, expand, opening up. In spite of what was called increasing uncertainties of the outside world, how do you see that playing out?
I come from Serbia, which is a European country. We're not part of the EU, but we are, of course, very deeply affected by everything that is happening in the EU. And the European Union is right now facing serious economic headwinds. Some are a result from domestic developments in the countries of the European Union. Some are stemming out of the geopolitical affairs. But one significant priority of the European Union as it moves forward is the Green Deal, is the transition to sustainable energy, sustainable industry, sustainable way of life. As a matter of fact, which has become quite pricey in its transition phase as a result of certain geopolitical developments. First and foremost, the war in Ukraine that had direct implications on the price of gas and so on and so forth. Now, the European Union continues to move in this direction at a higher price. And here it's a 500-pound panda, if you will, in the room, which is the fact that when it comes to sustainable technologies, and in particular electric vehicles, batteries, photovoltaic equipment, and so on and so forth, China is the global leader. And the question for Europe, and I very much am concerned as to what happens in Europe, because we're part of Europe, is how Europe is going to take this into consideration. Some of the recent moves that we have seen that indicate disposition towards protectionism in Europe, in my opinion, can make the green transition of Europe exceptionally expensive and not so sustainable.
Erik Baark, Thorsten Jelinek, and Jeremić, thank you all very much.
Thanks. Thanks. Nice to be here.
That brings us to the end of this special programme, Shaping the Future. From deepening reform to expanding opening up, promoting high-quality innovation at home, to making China a first-class business environment for foreign investors, the Third Plenum has set out an expansive and inclusive plan for the future. It is, as Han Wenxiu put it, a significant opportunity for the world. For more on all of our stories, go to europe.cgtn.com and do follow CGTN Europe on X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. But for now, from me, Juliet Mann, and from all the team here in London, goodbye.